My girlfriend said, let's pretend we broke up for a week just to see how we feel. I said, if that's what you want. On day 3, she posted a photo cuddling another guy. I didn't text her, just changed the locks and tossed her stuff outside. She showed up crying. It was just a test. I said, good, I passed. Ever had one of those moments when you realize your entire relationship was built on quicksand? That's where I found myself last month. Thought I'd share how I handled it, since it might help someone else spot the red flags I missed for 2 years. It started on a regular Tuesday night. I, 32M, had been living with my girlfriend Allison, 29F, for about 8 months. We'd been together for nearly 2 years total. Things were mostly good, or so I thought. I was making dinner when Allison came home from her job at a marketing firm. She seemed off, quiet, distracted. When I asked what was wrong, she sat at the kitchen counter and dropped her bomb. I think we should pretend we broke up for a week. I stopped chopping vegetables and looked at her. What? Not for real, she clarified quickly. Just an experiment to see how we feel being apart, to make sure this is still what we both want. My first thought was that she'd met someone else and was testing the waters before making a decision. But I kept that to myself. Where is this coming from? I asked instead. She gave me some line about her friend Megan doing the same thing with her boyfriend and how it brought them closer than ever, and reminded them why they fell in love. Said it was like a relationship reset button. I'm not big on games, never have been, but Allison insisted this wasn't a game. It was a growth exercise. She'd been in therapy recently, and I wondered if this was some new technique her therapist suggested, though it sounded sketchy as hell to me. After about 20 minutes of back and forth, I realized she wasn't really asking, she was informing me this was happening, so I shrugged and said, if that's what you want. She seemed almost disappointed by my easy agreement. Maybe she expected me to beg her not to do it? Not my style. We established the ground rules. For 1 week, we'd act like we weren't together. No calls, no texts unless it was about logistics for the apartment. She'd stay with her friend Megan. We'd reassess after 7 days. She packed a bag that night and left for Megan's place. The apartment felt strange without her, but not necessarily in a bad way. Quieter, more orderly. I slept better than I had in months. The next day was uneventful. I went to work, I'm an architectural engineer, hit the gym, grabbed a beer with a colleague. Didn't hear from Allison, which was following the rules. I found myself not really missing her, which was information in itself. Day 2 was similar. I caught up on some projects I'd been putting off, called my brother, watched a movie Allison would have hated. Still no contact from her, which was fine. Then came day 3. I rarely use Instagram, but I do have an account. Was scrolling through while eating lunch when I saw it, a post from Allison. She was curled up on a couch with some guy I'd never seen before. His arm was around her, her head on his shoulder. The caption, sometimes life surprises you with exactly what you need. I stared at the photo for a solid minute. This wasn't at Megan's place. The apartment in the background wasn't familiar. The timestamp showed it was posted that morning. So much for the relationship reset button. More like the test the replacement button. I finished my lunch, put the dish in the sink, and made 3 phone calls. First, to my landlord. I explained the situation and asked about my options regarding the apartment. Since both our names were on the lease, Ted, the landlord, explained I couldn't legally lock her out. However, he did mention that if she had actually moved out permanently, not just temporarily, we could discuss a lease modification. For now, I'd have to handle this differently. Second, to my lawyer friend Chris, wanted to check where I stood legally. He was blunt. You can't change the locks or remove her stuff. That's an illegal eviction even if you're mad. But you don't have to keep living with her either. Document everything in case this gets messy. Third, to a friend with a spare room. Asked if I could crash there for a few days while I figured out next steps. Ryan agreed immediately. I packed up some of my essentials, then went to our shared storage closet and pulled out Allison's suitcases. I carefully packed enough of her clothes and daily necessities to last a couple weeks, left them by the door, and sent her a text. The only one all week. Saw your Instagram. I've packed some of your things by the door. I'll be staying elsewhere for a while. Please come get your stuff. We're done. Then I muted her number and headed to Ryan's place. I didn't hear anything that night. The next morning, Ryan and I grabbed breakfast before work, and he helped me start looking at short-term rental options. I wasn't about to keep living with someone who'd pull that kind of stunt, but I also wasn't going to do anything illegal. Around noon, I got a text from Allison. WTF, we're on a break, not broken up. Where are you? I didn't respond. Let her stew in the uncertainty she created. After work, Ryan came with me to check on the apartment. Allison wasn't there, but the suitcases I'd packed were gone. I grabbed a few more of my things and left again. The next day, I spoke with Ted again about my options. He said that legally, the best approach would be for one of us to formally request removal from the current lease and sign a new one. The person staying would need to qualify for the rent on their own income. Given my steady job and perfect payment history, he was fine with me taking over the lease solo if that's what we decided. Allison finally called that evening, and I answered. Time to end the games. You said we were broken up for a week, I replied calmly. I said pretend. It wasn't real. It was just a test. A test you failed when you posted yourself cuddling with another guy after only 3 days. That wasn't. Jordan is just a friend from work, she stammered. I don't care if he's the Pope. We're done. She started crying harder. It was just a test to see if you cared enough to fight for us. And there it was, the real reason for this whole farce. Not a relationship reset, but a manipulation tactic to make me prove my devotion. All the pieces clicked into place. The weird mind games over the past few months, the manufactured fights that came out of nowhere, the constant need for reassurance. Well, good news, I said. It was a test and I passed. I respect myself enough not to be with someone who plays games like this. You can't just break up with me over this, she said, shifting tactics. We have a lease together. You can't make me leave. You're right about the lease, I acknowledged. I've already talked to Ted. One of us can take over the current lease if we both agree and the remaining person qualifies financially. Or we can both move out. Your choice. But either way, our relationship is over. Allison looked stunned that I'd already thought this through. So that's it? 2 years together and you're just done because of one mistake. This wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate choice to manipulate me, and when that didn't work, to hurt me. So yes, I'm done. Eventually we agreed that I would take over the lease. Allison would officially move out, and I would be the sole tenant going forward. Ted drew up the paperwork the next day, and within a week, the apartment was legally mine alone. It cost me an additional security deposit and some fees, but the clean break was worth every penny. Over the next few days, Allison came with her friend Megan to collect the rest of her things while I made myself scarce. I had documented everything with photos before she arrived, and after she left to make sure there were no issues. Over the next few days, the texts continued, swinging wildly between rage and pleading. I responded only to practical matters, when she could pick up her mail, arrangements for the lease, etc. After about a week, she seemed to accept it was over. Then came the social media campaign, vague posts about betrayal and men who can't handle strong women. Mutual friends started calling, asking what had happened. I told the truth, simply and without embellishment. Most understood. A few took her side. I let them go too. 2 weeks after the infamous test, I ran into Jordan, the guy from the Instagram post, at a coffee shop. He recognized me, looked uncomfortable, and then approached my table. Look, man, I just want you to know I had no idea she had a boyfriend. She told me she was single. I believed him. Allison had apparently been laying groundwork with him for weeks, long before her break proposal. He showed me texts going back nearly a month. Nothing explicit, but definitely flirting. He seemed like a decent guy caught in her web. I thanked him for his honesty and wished him well. It's been about a month now. I'm still in the apartment, though I'll probably move when the lease ends in 2 months. Too many memories. I'm not rushing into dating again. Need some time to calibrate my radar after missing so many warning signs with Allison. Last I heard, she's not with Jordan either. According to mutual friends, he backed off after learning the full story. She's telling everyone who'll listen that I'm the villain who threw away a great relationship over one little mistake. But here's what I know. Anyone who tests your love through deliberate manipulation doesn't really want a partner. They want a possession, a puppet, a prop in their personal drama. And life's too short for that nonsense. So if your partner ever suggests pretending to break up as a test, save yourself some time and make it real on the spot. Some tests you pass by walking away. Update, 3 months later. Hadn't planned on updating, but there have been developments worth sharing. First, the apartment situation resolved itself well. After completing the lease transfer, Ted offered to let me transfer to another unit in the building, a smaller one-bedroom that had just been renovated, if I wanted a fresh start. Rent was actually a bit less, and I got to escape the memories without the hassle of finding a completely new place. Moved in last month with a brand new lease agreement. Allison's campaign to paint me as the villain sputtered out after about 6 weeks. Turns out she tried the same, let's take a break routine with Jordan after they started dating. He recognized the manipulation tactic, having just been on the other side of it, and ended things immediately. When he shared that story with mutual friends, it pretty much killed any sympathy for her version of events. The most interesting development came from an unexpected source. Allison's previous boyfriend, Eric. He reached out to me through a mutual friend after hearing what happened. We met for a beer, and he told me she'd pulled similar stunts throughout their 3-year relationship. The final straw was when she tested him by saying she was flying to visit her sister, but actually checked into a hotel in town to see if he'd cheat, thinking she was away. When he didn't, she was actually disappointed. She creates problems to feel important, Eric explained. If things are stable, she gets bored and needs to manufacture drama. That conversation was weirdly cathartic. Confirmation that the problem wasn't me failing some legitimate relationship test, but her unhealthy need for emotional chaos. As for me, I've started dating again casually. Nothing serious, just getting back out there. The whole experience left me with better instincts for spotting red flags, so there's that silver lining. Oh, and the lease? Once the modification was complete and I was the sole tenant on the original apartment, the transfer to the new unit was straightforward. Allison tried to argue she should get half of my security deposit back. But since she had broken the lease early, her choice, not mine, those funds went toward the lease break fees. The landlord's office handled it all professionally. The last I heard about Allison, she's taking time to focus on herself. Based on her social media, that means posting inspirational quotes about knowing your worth and how the right person won't make you question their love. The irony is almost poetic. Some people asked if I regret ending things so abruptly, instead of trying to work through it. Not for a second. What Allison did wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment, it was a calculated test of how much manipulation I would tolerate. Finding out the answer was none seems to have been educational for her. Consider this case closed. Sometimes the trash takes itself out, it just needs a little help with the door.